Shalom Chaverim. Wonderful day here in the nation's capital. It's Wednesday, 8 p.m., and here we are again live on... The week has gone quickly. I don't know about your experience. And again, because I'm waiting for people to log on to join us, I just talk about the weather or nothing in particular. Lots going on around the world, a lot going on in the news, and my invitation to all of you stands. RabbiBlock@hotmail.com. We can meet in my Zoom room and pick a topic and how we're going to interact. We could have 3 or 4. I really would like a co-host. I really would like company. But so far, since I've gone live and I've made the same invitation, not a single person has taken me up on co-hosting. Joining me, not a single person. And disappointed because I really would like someone else. It'd be fun to co-host and talk between the two of us. You know, on my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I, Joe is the I, and we really enjoy talking with each other and have a nice rapport, and I enjoy having someone with me. Live in America, I think, was the podcast, and it's also on YouTube that Hayden invited me to be a guest. And I enjoyed being with him. So I have just the opposite of no objections. I really encourage and would like to someone co-host with me. So please, let me know and we'll co-host. I've mentioned before, and many of you know, that I was chaplain at a Veterans Administration psychiatric hospital for 40 years. And I don't remember how many years ago I was with one of my veterans groups, and I used to have groups several times a week. And we were talking about careers and military and which branch of the service and rank. And I just blurted out a question. I asked my guys about, we're going on a mission. Who do you want to lead? Do you want the lieutenant? Do you want gunny? Do you want a regular sergeant? Who would you like to lead? And everyone started laughing and we're bantering and talking about, and everyone agreed that if we're going into a combat mission, we want the sergeant. We'd prefer a Marine, a gunny sergeant, because we know the mission will be successful and we'll all come back alive. And then I said, well, I'm really a good chaplain and you like me. What about me? And everyone started laughing and said, that's ridiculous. You'll get us all killed. And I agree. And we began talking, and I began to realize that there are qualities and attributes that are better suited for certain jobs, missions. And I began linking it with all this conversation about DEI, and I began to realize that we're confusing different things. Just because someone is, let me see, what is your opinion on Jesus if you want to share? Certainly, I'd be glad to share. Jesus was born a Jew, died a Jew. On the cross, he said, Lama, Lama, Eli Sabachthani. That's from Psalms. And it's from the final confession. He was reciting of course, what else would he do? And if Jesus came back, where would he go to worship? He went to the synagogue in Copernicus. He went to other places. He would look for a familiar place to worship. A Roman Catholic church would be unknown to him. Protestant, Presbyterian, none of those would be known to Jesus. He would look for a familiar synagogue like the ones he went to when he was alive. And since he was a Pharisaic, itinerant, rabbi wasn't used at that time, but teacher, everything he taught can be traced back to our rabbinic sources because that's what he studied. That's what he knew. He was a wonderful preacher. And he said, I come to speak to you in metaphor. I come to speak to you in parable. He himself said, don't take me literally. He said it. And the Sermon on the Mount, the way he framed things, the very idea that Jesus saw the temple as corrupt and saw the need to change and reform the practices. And eventually the temple was destroyed because it was corrupt. And the priests were looking out for themselves. I have no problems with his teachings. And he himself did not say he was coming to create a new religion. He himself did not make any of the pronouncements. That all came later at the Council of Nicaea and other councils. Paul was instrumental in breaking off from Judaism and creating another religion. So someone asked of my view of Jesus. That's my view. And I'm waiting for the Messiah. And in Christianity, there's a second coming because the Christianity itself realized that Jesus didn't fulfill the requirements of being the Messiah. So they came up with the idea of a second coming, which, according to definition, is the same as our coming of the Messiah. And we'll wait and see who it is. I'm not placing any bets or anything, even though he may tarry. I'm waiting for the Messiah. So let me get back to my group and this idea that there are certain qualities that qualify someone for a job or certain qualities that should exclude someone for a job. Most of the time, they're irrelevant. That's what I realized working with my veterans. And we began talking, and I said, what are the qualities that Gunny has that'll bring us back safely from the mission that I don't have? And we put it on the wipe-off board. And then I said, what are the qualities that I have as chaplain that will get you through trauma, death of family members? And you're right, nobody knows what happens. No one truly knows what happens when we die. And one of the basic teachings of Judaism is, don't worry, because you'll find out. Better we focus on the here and now and what we're doing with our lives, the choices we make and how we live, and let the hereafter be God's responsibility. It's a way of defocusing. It's going to keep us from doing the right thing now if we're so worried about what's going to happen then. What choices did you make today? What did you do? So we put on the wipe-off board qualities. And we all looked at each other, and it's germane to this DEI stuff. Everyone realized that not everyone was suitable for everything. And often we consider irrelevant attributes when hiring someone. Let me give you a closer example. I live in a high-rise. For whatever reason, let's say there's a fire and I can't go out my front door. I look out my window and the tower truck is there and they're extending the ladder. What attributes, what qualities do I want in the person coming to carry me down? Okay? Think about it. It's totally irrelevant, their religion. It's irrelevant, the color of the skin, facial hair. It's totally irrelevant who they decide to have a sexual relationship with. Totally irrelevant. What is relevant? Their weight, their height, their strength. Will they be able to carry me down? Will they be able to help me down the tower? Those are relevant. Nothing else. Those other things aren't. So, if you're going to hire a firefighter, let's make a list of what's relevant and make a list of what's irrelevant. And we can use the same list I just made. You have to be able to wear the tank, the clothes. You have to be able to carry. Now, what limit do we want to put? You want to say, well, they have to be able to carry 1,000, well, person's not 500. So you have to be able to carry a 185-pound person down, or a 150-pound person. And that's what the fire company does. You create, and you train, and lift, and exercise, so that a firefighter has the qualities needed to rescue someone. And what are the irrelevant qualities? So instead of talking about excluding people or including people for irrelevancy, what is relevant to the job? If you are working in a bank as a teller, as a manager, then being able to carry a 150-pound person down the tower truck is irrelevant. So you don't want to make that one of the qualities. You want to have someone that can speak clearly, distinctly. You want someone that can relate to people. If they're in a wheelchair or not, that's irrelevant, because being ambulatory is an irrelevant attribute if you're in a bank. But if we're in the military and we're going out on a mission, being ambulatory is relevant. And do I read the Tanakh? Yeah, I'm working with several different people doing rabbinic commentary on Tanakh. Tanakh is the Hebrew word for Bible. We're actually focusing on the Torah, though. We did Psalms, we did Job, but this is the topic. We're doing the rabbinic commentary on certain classic rabbinic commentaries. Excuse me. So this idea of relevant and irrelevant qualities and attributes would go a long way to getting rid of this focusing on. Yeah, you don't have to be a firefighter to save people. I'm a lifetime member of the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company. That's why I used firefighters. However, there is a big difference between someone who's trained, and many times a good Samaritan will end up doing damage or hurting someone without realizing it, because they're thinking, I'll drag them out, I'll get them out of the fire, I'll go in the building, whatever it might be. And if you watch many of our TV shows, they show you when they take someone, they strap them down to a board in the neck and the head to prevent injuries. So just picking up and carrying someone, you can really do more damage than the person already had. So that question about physically saving, now emotionally saving, is something very different, because we can all help each other through different circumstances depending on individuals. Many times all we need is just a little support and friendship. Many times all we actually need is someone to listen to us and to be present. And that's something all of us can do, as opposed to being a trained chaplain, a trained therapist. So we can go down lots of jobs and look at them and say, there's no reason that we should give the job to someone because, or we should deny someone the job because, if it's on the irrelevant list. And that would save us a lot of embarrassment, a lot of aggravation, and this taking pages and websites off, and people who are military are heroes because they were of a certain color or belonged to a certain tribe. That was all irrelevant. My veterans and I, we made that very plain. We discussed with each other. What are the qualities that we want going in on a mission? And going back to my group, my men turned to me and said, if you were stationed with us, we wouldn't want you to come with us. And they said, if for some reason we found ourselves under attack in a setting, they said, we would protect you as chaplain. We would consider that our obligation and job to protect you because you're not trained, but I have qualified, I can shoot. So, however, my guys didn't want me doing that. They said, no, you are our chaplain for emotional support, to help us through crisis, to help with the wounded, to help when we're down, to help when we're discouraged. You're there not to carry a gun or rifle and not to shoot back. So we wouldn't want you to come with us, but if for some reason you were, we would protect you. And they said to me, and I believe them, they said, chaplain, nothing's going to happen to you. And it brings us back to what's relevant or irrelevant for a job. I could not teach calculus. I could not teach quantum mechanics. Doesn't mean I'm stupid. However, my training and teaching and background are not relevant for those subjects. But skin color, facial hair, lack of hair, those were all irrelevant attributes. So, you want me to teach biblical Hebrew, you want me to teach commentary, philosophy, theology, lots of subjects I'm qualified to teach. Many subjects I'm not. So, if you're looking to hire me, the starting point is, what is the job? What is it you want me to teach? And are my qualifications relevant? And then let's not bring up irrelevancies. Whom I'm married to, my religion, irrelevant. Maybe a test of my knowledge of the subject. Lots of things would be a way to test and find out what's relevant. But with this DEI stuff, we're caught in this awful web of mixing up relevant with irrelevant and then bringing people into jobs based on something irrelevant and not focusing on what is relevant to the particular job. Think of police officers. Think of clerks. There's lots of jobs we can look at, and if we step back and say, we are not going to exclude anyone, but we're not going to hire anyone based on the irrelevant list. We're going to focus on what's needed for that particular task or a job. You know, the same thing applies for all of you where you work. If you think about it, often we're asked to do or put into a situation where we don't have the qualifications to do it. Doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're ignorant. It means it's not my job description. And I don't have the skill to do it. Now, we could stop for a minute and say, oh, I'll take training. I can learn to do that. Okay. Then I can go on the list. At the hospital, the medical center, in our chaplain service, we cross-trained so that we could do whatever other chaplains were doing, except I cannot say Mass. I'm not a priest. And so that's a perfect example of what are the relevant qualifications to say Roman Catholic Mass. One of them is to be a Roman Catholic priest. What are irrelevant attributes, qualities? If you're a Roman Catholic priest, your skin color becomes irrelevant. Lots of things are. So the motto for both the VA and the military, I'm a chaplain to all, a rabbi to some. And then you would, I'm a chaplain to all, a priest to some. I'm a chaplain to all, a pastor to some. So you fill in the second line with the specifics of the denomination. And we all recognize that. And then with our cross-training, we would look and see, okay, I heard confessions. Now, when a patient came to me, I would say, since I'm not a priest, it's not the same level. So I don't want you to come to me to hear your confession thinking it's the same as if you went to our priest. It isn't. However, as a chaplain and as a rabbi, I can hear your confession. And we can discuss penance. And again, I make it clear it's not the same. And we would all do that. And we would all lead Christian prayers, Jewish prayers, Muslim prayers. We would help our veterans, not of our denomination, with the prayers that weren't sacramental, that weren't specific to the denomination. That's why I said I'm a chaplain to all of you and a rabbi to some of you. Iced tea. And that's what I thought of this with all that's going on about you have to hire so many in this category, so many in that category. And then now we're having a reaction to it. Now people want to redo revisionist history and redo things. And we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And that's why I thought of with my groups. And when we discussed a particular mission, and then we began to discuss things that the veterans were doing in their own lives. And then we began to discuss what they wanted to train for. And then we began to discuss what jobs, professions need a specific training. And someone asked about Palestine again. I would suggest go to my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I. It's very extensive on my reasoning, my rationale. And rather than taking 2 to 3 minutes to explain something a little more than that, but as I've said often enough, I believe in a country of Israel, a country of Palestine, that recognizes the rights of the other country to exist in safety and doesn't harbor terrorists on either side to raid the other side to destroy. So it comes from, like the EU, where France isn't sending missiles into Germany and Germany isn't attacking France. Each country recognizes the right of the other country to exist and doesn't spend any time talking about destroying either side or that it shouldn't exist. So that's my view on having two states like Poland, like Germany, like France, like England, like Ireland, that can look at each other. And look, the troubles in Northern Ireland have been put aside now. So I believe that the troubles in the Middle East can be put aside if both sides stop terrorizing each other, and if both sides stop trying to justify behavior because what the other side did. But both sides have to look at each other and say, "Maspeak, genug, enough. We're not going to kidnap, rape, and murder, and we're not going to go into and terrorize the population." Both sides have to look at each other and say that, and then we can sit down and have two countries. They did it in Ireland, so I have hope. I have hope. Oh, I want each of you listening, each of you watching, to start thinking of your job, other jobs, and attributes, qualities, training that are relevant, and things that aren't not important, but aren't necessary for the job. And rather than excluding or including based on the irrelevant, the stuff that you don't need, as a chaplain, I don't need to carry someone down the down the tower truck at the fire company. However, I was trained to use a fire extinguisher. I was trained for evacuation. So there are things that are relevant to a particular job and others that aren't. And that's my message for this evening, for my live, and for those of you listening. And I think that would go a long way to stopping the censorship, the revisionist history, the removing some of our veterans, some of our heroes from pictures and from the website because of irrelevant attributes. Raising the flag, that very famous Iwo Jima, which inspired the Marine Monument, it was courage, it was bravery, but the fact that someone came from a Native American tribe is totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. And so that should not have been removed because you're removing it for some irrelevant quality. It should stay because it's an example of bravery, just of a soldier. That's all. That's all. And that's my message this evening. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't put a plug in for my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds, available online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at your local bookstore, wherever you buy books, they will get it for you. And I've mentioned my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell everyone. And many of your questions will be answered. And I'll be giving you answers to questions you didn't know you had. And of course, you can always listen to my podcast, The Wisdom of Rabbi Block, or my podcast, The Rabbi and I. And there's lots of things to learn. And you can always send your questions to me, rabbiblock@hotmail.com. You can always send suggestions for topics. What would you like to have me do? What would you like me to talk about during the live on Wednesday nights? Let me know. And that really would help me, because I'd really be addressing more directly rather than my thinking, gee. And since I'm not in the hospital anymore, topics don't come to me as frequently, because when you're working in a psychiatric hospital and talking with both our veterans, our patients, and our staff, there are lots of subjects, lots of suggestions, there's lots of interaction. And so I go, oh, that's a good topic. Oh, I want to bring that up. But I don't have as much input now. And so that's what I really would appreciate, you writing to me. I would also appreciate you co-hosting with me. So, thank you. That's my message for this evening. Stay safe. Do the right thing according to your own religious teachings. And you know what that is. You know about being the best and not hurting others. So, go out and do. Good night, everyone.